Subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss another video of Bhakti Charu Swami.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschata Deshutarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So this evening I have been asked to speak on Srila Prabhupada. And although everyone knows Srila Prabhupada, everyone loves to hear about Srila Prabhupada more and more. Prabhupada's personality is as such, is such a wonderful personality with so many wonderful achievements, and he bestowed his mercy upon all of us in such a wonderful way that he naturally makes him very close to us, and we feel extremely indebted to him for all that he has done for us. Isn't it? How many of you feel grateful to Srila Prabhupada? And if I ask you, why do you feel this gratitude for Srila Prabhupada? Because what he has given to all of us. Ever since you started to practice Srila Prabhupada's teachings and mold your lives according to Srila Prabhupada's teachings, did the quality of your life improve? How many of you think that the quality of your life has improved? And do you feel more happy? Do you feel more satisfied within yourself? Why is that? In simple words, I would say because Srila Prabhupada solved all our problems. And the way he solved our problems is very simple. He gave us a very wonderful shelter. The first shelter that Srila Prabhupada created for us is his temples and his institution, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And when we become situated in ISKCON, we feel sheltered, we feel protected, and on top of everything it comes with a wonderful realization. And that is the real shelter that we found, the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Now these are all not some imaginary, sentimental concept. It's real. Is Krishna taking care of us? Like, okay, just let's consider all the food that we are eating. Who is providing all those food stuff? Are you sure? Not the supermarket? Like, let's consider, what a wonderful arrangement that Krishna made. A seed falls on the ground, a seed of an apple. And what happens? A tree comes out from that. in course of time. Then in the tree we get apples. Then in the apples there are fruits, there are seeds. And those seeds fall on the ground, trees come up. And in those trees there are apples. In those apples there are seeds. In those seeds there are trees. In those trees there are apples. What an amazing arrangement. And it applies to every single aspect of our food. Like whether it's fruits, grains, nuts, they all are Krishna's arrangement. Water. Like next to food is, what is more important? Actually, more important than food is actually water. Because without food we can go for a few days. Without water, we cannot. Now just consider, although this planet, 3/4 of the planet is actually water, but that water is not potable. That water is not drinkable. Or we cannot even use that water for cultivation of land, growing food. But see what wonderful arrangement he made. The sun makes the water evaporate. Then it forms the cloud. The wind disperses the cloud all over. And then the cloud comes down in the form of rain, distilled water, right? Pure water, distilled water. And that fills up all the water bodies as a source of supply of water. What is even more important than water? Right, oxygen. We are taking oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. If this process continued, what would have happened? The whole atmosphere would have been filled with carbon dioxide. But did it ever happen? The trees and plants are taking carbon dioxide and giving us oxygen back. Now, are these all someone's arrangement or just some accidental happening? Who thinks that all these are just accidental happening? Who thinks that they are all someone's divine arrangement? Who is that? Krishna. Now, simple consideration. It's just these are some three simple considerations, but doesn't it actually prove the fact that Krishna is taking care of us? Anything that we need, it is actually Krishna's divine arrangement. Just consider if the sun was not there. Can you imagine what would have happened? Just the presence of one sun. Had the sun not been there, there wouldn't have been any light. The whole world would have been in darkness. Not only it would have been in darkness, there wouldn't have been any vegetation. The vegetables are growing, the plants are growing because of the presence of the sun. And if the vegetation was not there, we wouldn't survive. Like as I said, like see how much we depend upon the trees and plants. Our whole existence, this is the thing, like we can see that our existence is dependent upon the presence of the trees and plants. Had they not been there, there wouldn't have been any transformation of carbon dioxide into oxygen. Had there been no tree, there wouldn't have been any food for us. Somebody say, okay, I mean, we could eat meat, but those animals that we are eating, they also wouldn't have been there if the trees and plants were not there. So this is how Krishna is taking care of us. And this is actually a display of Krishna's love for us. Why Krishna is going out of his way to make all these arrangements? Because he loves us. Can there be any doubt about that? And Srila Prabhupada made us aware of it. Okay, like before you came in contact with Srila Prabhupada's teachings, how many of you are aware of all these facts? You are aware of it? To some extent. Yeah, to some extent, maybe. But not in a real extent. I mean, if I ask, since you said to some extent, to go into it, to what extent? Like, did you ever consider that all these arrangements were made by Krishna? That's what I mean. Like, we may have read in the books of biology that the trees and plants are transforming the carbon dioxide into oxygen and so forth. But we never really considered that how wonderful it is that a seed falls on the ground, a tree comes up, and in the tree there are fruits, in the fruit there are seeds, in the seeds there are trees. At least I don't think I ever considered that, although I have seen it. But it never occurred to me. So that's why, yes, to some extent the awareness was there, but that awareness was not really complete or appropriate. Srila Prabhupada came us and made us aware that these are all Krishna's arrangement. It's Krishna's arrangement. I came across Srila Prabhupada's, I would say that I came across Srila Prabhupada through his book, The Nectar of Devotion. The first book that I got from Srila Prabhupada. And the thing that I understood from that book, so the first thing that I understood from that book was God is a person. And that is Krishna. And that came to me with such a profound realization. I knew Krishna, I considered Krishna to be the hero, my role model, so and so forth. But no one ever told me that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is a person. Prior to that, at least my understanding was that God is some light or so and so forth. But that He's a person that happened just by coming across Srila Prabhupada's books. Another realization that came at that time while reading Srila Prabhupada's books was, I was thinking that the goal of life, although I became influenced by Vedic literatures and scriptures to some extent, but the understanding was impersonal. And the understanding was the goal of life is actually to achieve liberation. Moksha, mukti, liberation. But when I started to read the Nectar of Devotion, one of the first things that occurred to me, or rather made me aware, I became aware of, there are 5 kinds of liberation. That really struck me with an amazing and a profound realization. 5 kinds of liberation. And out of those 5 kinds of liberations, 4 are positive, 1 is negative. And I realized that the course of liberation that I was pursuing is the negative course of liberation. Because that impersonalism just leads to that sajuja mukti, the impersonal liberation. And so that is how Prabhupada's books actually comes with an amazing awareness and a profound realization. It gives straight away, it gives you a very clear understanding. There was no awareness of the soul. What to speak of the awareness of the soul? We didn't have any understanding of this material body having two types of material bodies, gross body and subtle body. Although I heard at the time of when they perform the Shraddha ceremony, they do mention about the subtle body. And they even say that the subtle body is being assisted in his journey to the other world and so forth. But there was no clear understanding what that subtle body actually was. And it is through Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's explanations, it became aware that yes, we have two types of bodies. One is gross body, the other is a subtle body. The gross body is made of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air and ether. And subtle body is made of 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence and false ego. And also, the gross body dies. At the time of death, we actually become free from the gross body's bondage. But the subtle body doesn't die. Another awareness. How do we recognize that we have a subtle body? A simple understanding. When you are sleeping, your gross body is inactive. You are not at all aware of your gross body. But you are dreaming. In your dream, you are present. Right? And in what kind of body you are present in your dream? That's the subtle body. Further understanding. The gross body dies, subtle body doesn't die. Subtle body after death actually carries one to the next body, according to the shape of the subtle body. And the subtle body takes the shape according to the activities of an individual. Every single action leaves its imprint on the subtle body. For example, when you do something good, how do you feel? Good. You feel elated, right? When you do something wrong, even though no one saw you while doing that, how do you feel? You feel heavy. You feel guilty. So this is how our actions leave their impressions on the subtle body. Don't we sometimes say that, oh, that person is like an angel? Why do we say that? Because his actions are like that of an angel. And those actions of that individual affects his subtle body, and he gets a shape of an angelic body. His subtle body takes the shape of an angelic body. And sometimes we say, oh, that person is like an animal. Why do we say that? Because his activities are like that of an animal. And as a result of that, his actions makes his subtle body take the shape of an animal's. And when one dies, by the arrangement of the Mother Nature, that individual's subtle body, or the subtle body carries the soul into an appropriate body. The person who acted like an angel, whose body has taken the shape of an angel's, he gets into an appropriate by the arrangement of Mother Nature, and there he develops a gross body, and he comes out. Similarly, when somebody has developed somebody's subtle body has taken the shape of an animal's, accordingly he will be placed in an animal and get an animal body. So this is how our actions are leading ourselves. This is how our actions are leading us into our next destination. And that principle is called karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. And again, this leads to the next consideration. We have the subtle body. Subtle body doesn't die. Then how to become free from the bondage of subtle body? The subtle body consists of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Krishna is saying, with your mind, you constantly think of me. Manmana bhava. So in this way, when the mind is engaged in thinking about Krishna all the time, then what happens? The mind, the apparently material mind, is spiritualized. The subtle body doesn't die, but the subtle body can be transformed. The mind becomes spiritualized. When one is constantly engaged in serving Krishna through devotional service, then Krishna gives him dadami buddhi yogam tam. And in this way, buddhi or intelligence is spiritualized. And when one becomes engaged in serving Krishna, then he becomes situated in his actual identity, Swarup. He becomes free from his false ego, mistaken identity, and becomes situated in his actual identity. And that is Jiber Swarup Hoy, Krishner Nityadas. So now, that person doesn't have a subtle body. That stage is called Jivan Mukta stage or Swarup Siddhi. Iha jasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikhilasyapya avasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Although he is situated in his gross body, but he doesn't have a subtle body. In that apparently gross body, there is a pure spirit soul. Swarup Siddhi, achievement of his spiritual perfection. He is situated in his body, apparently. I said apparently because that gross body is not gross material body anymore. It is spiritualized. Therefore, Prabhupada gives the example, you all remember, iron and fire. When the iron is in fire and it becomes red hot, is it iron or fire? It's fire. Somebody kind of reacted by, or responded by saying, Prabhupada, it's still iron. Prabhupada said, touch it. So, So what an amazing clarification of our spiritual perfection. Devotional service frees us from the bondage of a subtle material body and situates us in our spiritual identity, pure spiritual identity, as a servant of Krishna. And at that pure stage, our mind is constantly engaged in thinking about Krishna. In that pure stage, our intelligence is applied perfectly in serving Krishna. And that is the spiritual perfection. Another realization from Prabhupada's teachings. The process of Ashtanga Yoga and the difference between that process and the process of devotional service. Process of Ashtanga Yoga is gradually taking a yogi from making him rise his spiritual energy from the base of the source of that energy, which is situated at the base of the spinal column, called Muladhara. And because that energy is kind of in a kind of a coiled up stage, it is called Kundalini. Kundalini means coiled up. And a yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, makes one rise that energy from the base or Muladhara to higher and higher chakras. Like first chakra is Swadhisthana, then Manipur, then Anahata, Agya, and so forth. And finally Sahasrara, the brain center. And it's a very, very difficult process. Very difficult process. Like the process was meant for the living entities in the Satyuga, who is to live for thousands of years, and they could practice this process for a long, long time to achieve perfection. And even then they used to have difficulty. Like we know Vishwamitra, a great sage, was practicing this process for 64,000 years. And then he just happened to ankle bell of a celestial damsel, Menaka. Fell down. His meditation broke. Fell down. Shakuntala was born. So these are all historical facts. So we can see like such qualified individuals after so many thousands of years of practice could not really achieve perfection. Eventually he did achieve perfection, but these are some very rare individuals. And this process, ascending process, is a very, very arduous and difficult process. But there is another process that Prabhupada gave us. The descending process. The mercy is coming down. Whether we are qualified or not, the mercy is coming down and perfection is achieved. We don't have to practice this Ashtanga Yoga and trying to make the Kundalini rise through Shushumna, penetrating through different chakras and coming into the Sahasrara, brain center. We don't have to try that. We simply depend upon the Lord's mercy. Now here also another important point. According to the Ashtanga Yoga, the ultimate consideration is Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus. Now let us consider Brahma Samhita. How is Brahma Samhita describing the spiritual world? Sahasrapatra kamalam gokulakhang mahatpadam tat kinjalkang tadangshani tat patrani shriyamopi. Spiritual world is a thousand petal lotus. So the achievement of yogic perfection, that is taking a yogi to the point of this 1,000 petal lotus. But what is there on the 1,000 petal lotus? That 1,000 petal lotus is actually the abode of Radha Krishna. So we have got a direct elevation to that spiritual world where Radha Krishna is situated on the 1,000 petal lotus, like what the yogis try to achieve after thousands of years of practicing. As a devotee, by receiving the mercy of a bona fide spiritual master, we've been elevated to that point, which is beyond the yogi's perfected understanding. So that is Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Again, Brahma Samhita. Panthastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo bayorathapi manoso munipungavanam soppasti jat prapadasimna vachinta tatte govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Muni Pungavanam. Muni means sages. And Pungava means best of the sages. Muni Pungav. The word Pungav means the crest jewel of that person. The crest jewel of the saintly personalities of sages. Moving with the speed. Their mind can move with the speed. Their consciousness can move with the speed of wind. Bayor athapi. Even faster than the movement of wind. Traveling for millions of years. Cannot even attain the toenail of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See how rare it is to achieve the Supreme Lord. But by Prabhupada's mercy, we have the opportunity to become situated at the lotus feet of the Lord directly. What the munis, the best of the munis, yogis cannot achieve by millions of years of spiritual practice that they are practicing, they cannot achieve the toenail of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We get a direct access to that Supreme Personality of Godhead by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And mind you, these are not just some sentimental presentations. These are factual. They are authentic facts. This is what Srila Prabhupada has given us. There is no need to speculate anything. The way he has given, simply by practicing the process, we can achieve our spiritual perfection. We can go on and on like that, like these are the gifts of Srila Prabhupada. I came to Krishna consciousness movement quite late. I joined the movement in 76. That also quite accidentally. I went to Mayapur after reading the Nectar of Devotion. When I was reading the Nectar of Devotion, I realized that this is what I was actually searching for. This is the way. It came to me with perfect clarity. And I got the book. I started to read it when I went home in the evening. I fell asleep while reading the book. And in the morning when I woke up, the first thing I did is just pick up the book and started reading it. I was so fascinated by that book, The Nectar of Devotion. And the second night, I had a dream of Srila Prabhupada. I saw Srila Prabhupada sitting on which seemed to me like a throne. Because in India, generally the sadhus don't sit on elaborate seats. At the most, they sit on a tiger skin. But Srila Prabhupada was sitting on a throne which looked like a throne, like a king. And there was a brilliant light around him. And just that sight made me realize that this is my spiritual master. Actually, I was searching for a spiritual master for over a year in India. I went to the Himalayas and then started to travel down through the holy places on the bank of the Ganges. I almost ended up joining one ashram. I mean, these are all I described in the Ocean of Mercy. Fortunately, Krishna saved me. Didn't join. I don't know what would have happened if I joined that ashram. And then after about a year's search, I gave up, thinking that if at all I have a guru, then let him come and pick me up. I have been searching for him for so long and I couldn't find him. So if at all I have a guru, then let him come and pick me up. And in a way, that's what actually happened. Soon after that, at that time actually what happened, one English friend of mine came to India and together we went up trekking in the Himalayas. And anyway, so then when I almost gave up my search, I just happened to get this Nectar of Devotion. And it totally transformed. From the very first page, actually, I felt that this is what I was looking for. And then I inquired about Srila Prabhupada in Calcutta temple, and they told me that Prabhupada was in America, and he would come after a few months. So I felt that okay, then let me go to the different places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes, and then I would go to Vrindavan, because Nectar of Devotion actually gives you the life of a devotee in the Holy Dham, especially in Vrindavan. And so I thought after visiting some places of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, I would go to Vrindavan. And the first place I went to was Mayapur. I arrived there in the evening, and whoever I spoke to were inviting me. Why don't you stay with us? Why don't you? Because those days hardly anybody went to Mayapur. And because Mayapur was quite remote and quite unknown. And you know how enthusiastic the devotees are when they get an object to preach to. So, and it was quite fascinating and quite touching, actually. Like everybody is asking that, why don't you come and stay? And I attended the Bhagavad Gita class in the evening, and one Canadian devotee, he was a brahmachari at that time, Raghav Pandit Prabhu, was giving the class, who is now Bhakti Raghav Maharaj. So, And I was so fascinated, like thinking, oh, I mean, these Americans are reciting the Sanskrit verses. It seemed like he knows the entire Bhagavad Gita by heart. The next morning, I attended the Mangalarati, and somebody gave me a bead, I was chanting, and then I went to... maybe you can do one thing. This is a problem they do. Like they take it to the end. Haribol. Okay. Take it to the end so it becomes top heavy and naturally it slides down. Best is to take it in the mid of it. And so the next morning, the Bhagavatam class, and that was even more impressive. One young American sannyasi was giving the class, and it was so... I mean, he was quoting verses like nobody's business. And it was very impressive. And like, because I never really tried to memorize verses, so when somebody recited some Sanskrit verses, like it was very, very impressive. And then right after the class, that person, that devotee, sannyasi, he was Shatadhanna Maharaj, he just came up to me and started to talk to me. And I was very touched by his concern. And then what did I do? I went to a barber. Got my head shaved. Prior to that, actually, I got a dhoti and kurta. Then I went to Ganga, threw away my old clothes, took a bath, put on dhoti, kurta, came back. All these devotees were requesting me to join, and now they saw me this way. They were completely shocked. They never thought that their preaching would have such a potent effect on me. So that's how my spiritual life started. And very soon I got absorbed in various activities, mainly those days. Lots of things were happening in Mayapur anyway. So then I got the news that Prabhupada came to Bombay. So I told Bhavananda Maharaj, Bhavananda Maharaj and Jayapataka Maharaj were the co-directors of Mayapur those days. And Bhavananda Maharaj told me that, look, in Bombay nobody knows you. And besides that, Prabhupada is quite sick. So even if you go to Bombay, you won't be able to see Srila Prabhupada. So just wait here and he will come. When he comes here, you will see him. And after all, you have so many things to do here. It won't be right for you to just leave. And because those days there were very few Indian devotees and practically very few kind of educated and cultured Indian devotees those days. So anyway, then he got the news that Prabhupada went to Kumbh Mela, Allahabad. And a group of devotees traveled, and I was also included in the team. So we went to Allahabad, and right after leaving my backpack in the tent which was assigned for us, I wanted to meet Srila Prabhupada. I went to Prabhupada's tent, but one big Western devotee was guarding the gate. And he told me that I shouldn't go. And if I wanted to see Srila Prabhupada, I can come to the program in the evening. Prabhupada would give darshan and lecture. So I kind of left. When I was walking back to the tent, I saw Bhavananda Maharaj. He was carrying a basket of vegetables that he took from Mayapur to offer to Srila Prabhupada. So he saw me and he said, "Come, I'm going to Srila Prabhupada." So I just followed him. He was practically running, so I also ran after him. And we went straight to Prabhupada's tent. I saw from outside that Prabhupada was sitting behind a desk. So seeing that, I just offered obeisances. And then when I got up and tried to move in to Prabhupada's tent, in the meantime Bhavananda Maharaj already went inside. And Rameshwar Maharaj, who was Prabhupada's secretary at that time, he was sitting outside in a chair. So he told me not to go, because Prabhupada is taking prasad. And I really started to cursing myself. Why did I have to offer obeisances from outside? If I went with Bhavananda Maharaj, then no one would have stopped me. Anyway, so again, dejected, I left. But I realized one thing at that time, that Prabhupada at that time had about 10,000 followers. And who I was, just an insignificant new bhakta. What right do I have to go to Srila Prabhupada? So I gave up the idea of meeting Srila Prabhupada. And Sridhar Maharaj was organizing the book distribution there, and so I also got into that and went out and started to distribute books. That was another exciting experience. Because Kumbh Mela, people are so pious, they are very eager to take books. And so we started to distribute the Hindi books. Then in the evening I came back and I saw Srila Prabhupada was giving darshan. That was another very wonderful experience, just to see Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I'm sure many of you heard from different devotees their experiences of seeing Srila Prabhupada. So, it's the sight of Srila Prabhupada was something very, very special. And in simple words I can say, for the first time, not for the first time, maybe the second time, I experienced what ecstasy actually meant. Just the sight of Srila Prabhupada, made my heart beat so fast and so loud, as if I could, and there was only that awareness, that wonderful feeling of just that overwhelmed my consciousness, just seeing Srila Prabhupada. And for a moment, for a while, I was not aware of what was going on. It was just that overwhelming feeling of joy and ecstasy, seeing Srila Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada was giving darshan in the morning and we were doing Guru Puja, Bhagavatam Class Prabhupada was giving, and then in the evening Prabhupada gave darshan. Then one morning, I got to know that Srila Prabhupada decided to leave Kumbh Mela all of a sudden. Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki Jai, Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai. And then I just heard, and I thought, okay, didn't really think much of it. Prabhupada wanted to leave. But then Bhavananda Maharaj came to me and told me, Prabhupada is leaving today for Calcutta. And I said, yes, I heard. And then he said, a small group of devotees will be traveling with Srila Prabhupada in this train. one first-class carriage has been hooked onto a Calcutta-bound train, and Prabhupada will be traveling in that carriage with his devotees. And you have been included in that team. I mean, I literally started to jump with joy. And so the train left at night, so soon after that we took rest. Then next morning I was chanting, sitting in my compartment, and Bhavananda Maharaj came and told me, "Come, I'll take you to Srila Prabhupada." Now all this while I was dying to meet Prabhupada, and when he said, "Come, I'll take you to Srila Prabhupada," I don't know what happened. Like I just kind of, in a kind of a daze, I just kept sitting there, maybe with an overwhelming feeling that I cannot really go to Srila Prabhupada, I'm not qualified. So Bhavananda Maharaj barely could understand what was going on in my mind. So he took me by my hand and dragged me through the corridor and opened Srila Prabhupada's compartment door, pushed me in. And I fell flat, offering obeisances. When I got up, I saw Srila Prabhupada was looking at me, and Prabhupada Motion told me, "Sit here." In first class compartment there are two seats facing each other. In the other one there was Bhavananda Maharaj, Jayapataka Maharaj and Rameshwar Maharaj. And Abhiram Prabhu, who was the temple president of Calcutta temple at that time, he was sitting on the floor. And Prabhupada was sitting in this other seat. Prabhupada asked me to sit next to him. And I said, "Prabhupada, no, I would rather sit on the floor." Prabhupada said, "No, sit here." So there was a blanket that was spread over the seat, so I rolled the edge of the blanket and sat one corner. And after some initial exchange, Srila Prabhupada told me, "You translate my books into Bengali." And that service actually opened the gate of my good fortune. Like now I have access to Srila Prabhupada whenever I wanted to go to him, because I had the excuse that I have to show what I translated to Srila Prabhupada. Of course, nobody ever questioned whenever I had a real easy access. In Calcutta, Prabhupada stayed for, I think, 3 days. And then Prabhupada went to Bhubaneswar. And I could have gone with Srila Prabhupada, but I decided to stay back in Calcutta because I was printing a book to present to Srila Prabhupada. I collected Prabhupada's Bengali writings from a Gauriya Math magazine called Gauriya Patrika from 1948 onwards. 48 to about 51, I collected quite a few articles that came out in those magazines. And I was printing that in a book. And so I stayed back in Calcutta to take care of the printing. Then Prabhupada came to Mayapur, and so I used to show the translations to Srila Prabhupada. And one day Srila Prabhupada gave me a stack of Bengali letters to reply. The way I used to reply, I used to read the letters out to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada used to give me the points, like what to reply, what to write, and then I would write the letter. and read out the draft to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada would again correct them. And then I used to handwrite them on Prabhupada's letterhead. And then Prabhupada used to sign. Those days there was no Bengali typewriter, so I used to handwrite them. So when I finished the Bengali stack of letters, Prabhupada gave me a stack of Hindi letters. And he wanted me to answer them. And so then one day, Srila Prabhupada just told me that he was making me his secretary for Indian affairs. And he called Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was Prabhupada's secretary at that time. And he told him that he was appointing me as his secretary for Indian affairs. And he wanted me to move into the room which was assigned for his secretary. And Prabhupada wanted me to move in there with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. That gave me another good fortune. Like I had the wonderful opportunity to be in the same room with Tamal Krishna Maharaj from then onwards, wherever we went, Tamal Krishna Maharaj always wanted me also to stay with him in the same room. Like from Mayapur, Prabhupada went to Bombay. Prabhupada's quarters was in that tower, the right-hand side tower on the 6th floor. And when I went there, I decided to stay with Upendra Prabhu. He was Prabhupada's servant at that time. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked me, where are your things? I told him that I kept them in the room where Upendra Prabhu is staying. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, no, you move into this room where I am staying. That was just next to Srila Prabhupada's room. And anyway, that was another wonderful good fortune because he was such a wonderful devotee. And I learned so much from him. He was so dedicated to serve Srila Prabhupada and take care of him. And he was so disciplined and so organized, and on top of everything, he was so intelligent. Anyway, this is how I had the good fortune to be with Srila Prabhupada from then onwards. When Prabhupada was in Bombay, his health condition was not so good. One day, two very important persons came to see Srila Prabhupada. One was Sriman Narayan. He was the ex-governor of Madras. And his brother-in-law, Ram Krishna Bajaj, he was the chairman of the Bajaj Industries. And so they were quite close to Srila Prabhupada. They used to come from time to time to see Srila Prabhupada. And this time when they saw that Prabhupada's health condition was not so good, they suggested that Prabhupada went for a change. They used the expression change. And they suggested that Prabhupada went to Rishikesh at the foothills of the Himalayas. And Prabhupada liked the idea. Prabhupada said he never went to Rishikesh before. And so Prabhupada decided to go. And they actually arranged a house there, which was the most beautiful house those days in Rishikesh, called Ganga Darshan, right on the bank of the Ganges. So some of us just moved in, had traveled with Srila Prabhupada, a small group. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Upendra Prabhu, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj's servant, Gauridas Prabhu, and myself. And there, after a few days, actually one night, at night also one of us used to be with Srila Prabhupada. And my shift was from 12 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And one night Srila Prabhupada called me, and then he told me, the time has come for me to leave my body. I want to leave my body in Vrindavan. Please take me to Vrindavan immediately. That, what Prabhupada said was so shocking. I was practically trembling all over. I just ran down the stairs, woke up Tamal Krishna Maharaj and told him what Prabhupada said. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj also came running upstairs, and Prabhupada told him the same thing. And that night only we packed everything and left for Delhi. We stopped in Delhi for that night. The next morning we went to Vrindavan. And the devotees of Vrindavan were so happy that all of a sudden Prabhupada decided to come to Vrindavan. And after the darshan of the deities, Prabhupada went to his room. All the devotees followed him, and there Prabhupada told why he came to Vrindavan. And you could literally see how ecstasy could turn into agony. The joy of the devotees they were literally bouncing with ecstasy, and now all of a sudden, turned into an intense agony. And then Prabhupada started to pacify them by quoting a verse from Bhagavad Gita, Dehi nashmin jatha dehe, kaumaram jovanam jara, tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuyati. And Prabhupada said that is the reality. The body changes from childhood to youth to old age. And then one day one has to leave the body and go to another. Dehantar, one body to another body. The change of the body doesn't really affect us. We are beyond the existence of the body. So when we realize that, then we do not lament for this matter of changing of the body. Dhirastatra namuyati. A person situated in knowledge doesn't become bewildered. And then when everyone left, Prabhupada told me, from now on, you don't cook for me. Those days I was cooking for Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you don't cook for me anymore. And don't force me to eat anything. What's the use of eating when there is no appetite? And I could feel that now Prabhupada will stop eating, and in this way Prabhupada would give up his body. I went and told that to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, what Prabhupada said, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj sat there silently, thinking very deeply, and then he told me that at a time like this we don't really know what to do. But the news already spread all over the world. Those days, the telephone system in India was terrible. To get through to the international calls was practically impossible. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj managed to contact Adikeshav Maharaj in New York, and he told him to inform all the devotees, senior devotees, about Prabhupada's decision to go to Vrindavan to leave his body. Then the devotees, many devotees came to Vrindavan, and they all had a meeting, and in that meeting they decided that they can't let Srila Prabhupada go now. And the meeting in consideration was that Prabhupada is a pure devotee. So if Prabhupada desires something, then Krishna will fulfill that desire. So when they presented that request to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, okay, if that's what you want, I will stay. And it was so ecstatic when Prabhupada said, everybody shouted, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I used to keep always a glass of fruit juice, just in case Prabhupada wanted to drink something sometime. And Prabhupada sat up. He couldn't sit up himself, like he needed the support, so he sat up. And I just gave him a glass of juice. And he drank it. It was a glass of pomegranate juice. He just drank it, and I went straight to the kitchen and started to cook for Srila Prabhupada without even asking him. And I served. Prabhupada was hardly able to eat anything, because when you don't eat for such a long time, you can't eat. But still, because I was making the prasad for him, Prabhupada was coming and sitting down to take prasad. Then one day, I think the second day or third day after that, Prabhupada asked me, do you know where is Gopinath Bazaar? I said, Prabhupada, I don't know anything in Vrindavan. This is the first time, and I didn't even step out of the temple premises. Please tell me what you want, I can find out. Then Prabhupada said, go to Gopinath Bazaar. There is an Ayurvedic doctor, his name is Banamali Kaviraj. So you tell him about me, he knows me, and tell him that I wanted him to treat me. So I found this Banamali Kaviraj. He was very, very old person. I think he was in his 90s. But still he used to come and sit in his clinic. Small little shop front. And when I told him, he told me that then Prabhupada has to come here. I said, no, there's no way Prabhupada can come here, you have to come. And he said, look, I don't go anywhere, I'm too old to go anywhere. And I said, no, I'll take you in a rickshaw. He said, rickshaw? With every jerk, my bones crack. But I begged and begged and begged, and finally he agreed. So he came, he checked Srila Prabhupada, and then he told me that there is a problem, that he has to make the medicine himself, because the medicine that he would give has to be freshly made. So I told him that in our guest house we'll make some arrangement for you to stay here. He said, no, I can't stay, I have to go home. Then I told him, then why don't you show me how to make it? So he liked the idea. So he took me to the field. Those days, just behind our temple, it was all open field. And he showed me 2 herbs that grows wild actually. And one is called Punarnava and the other is called Pathar Kuchi. And he showed me how to make the extract of the leaves from those 2 leaves. And he gave 2 salt, and he showed her the proportion to mix it and give the medicine 3 times to Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada's health condition improved. And when his health condition improved, he wanted to go abroad. So his plan was to first go to London, from London to New York to Gitanagari, Gitanagari to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles to Hawaii. And he wanted to stay in Hawaii and complete Srimad Bhagavatam, translate Srimad Bhagavatam. So I told Banamali Kaviraj said, please don't let him go now. The medicine is working, and with the coming of winter, I would give him a Makaradhaj. It's a very powerful medicine that will build him up, but I have to wait for him to become stronger. And also the cold of the winter would help him to retain that strong medicine. I told Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, look, when Prabhupada decides something, it's impossible to make him change his mind. And one day he jokingly told Prabhupada, Bhakti Charu's Maharaj wants you to stay here, and I want you to take out of here. So let's see who wins. He said it jokingly. I said, no, whatever Prabhupada wants, that will be. But now I actually lament that I should have actually told the other. There were many GBCs and sannyasis there in Vrindavan at that time. And if Prabhupada went to London and his health condition deteriorated, and he went back to Vrindavan again. But to us, Srila Prabhupada is always there. A personality like Srila Prabhupada, like the super soul, he remains. And he helps and guides the sincere souls who have surrendered to his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.